Not-for-profit marketing, Part 4. Here are the learning outcomes for this section. We're going to consider the marketing communications mix from a not-for-profit perspective. We're going to consider how messaging is crafted. We'll identify the benefits of branding for not-for-profit organizations, and we'll identify the risks of investing in branding. First, let's recap on what we covered in Part 3. We looked at the 3 strategic orientation stages for not-for-profits. The cause orientation stage, where organizations are simple, they get money and they spend it. The funding orientation, where organizations use resources to attract more and broader sources of funding. And the need orientation stage, a strategically orientated organization is operating at this stage, attending to a guiding overarching vision. First of all, let's think about the role of marketing communications within the marketing mix of not-for-profit organizations. First of all, we've got the idea of engagement. We've got to think about what the communication needs of our various audiences are, and how would we engage with them? Would we engage with them on their terms using one-way communication, two-way communication, or even dialogic communications? With regard to audiences, we will have different specific audiences, and which audiences do we need to communicate with, and what are their various behavior types and their information processing needs. And there will be certain responses that we are looking for. So what are the desired outcomes of the communication process we want to follow? Are those outcomes based on changes in perception, values, beliefs, or are we looking for changes in behavior? At each strategic orientation stage, not-for-profit organizations need to communicate with their audiences in order to develop awareness of the issue or cause that they are focusing on, gain support, and of course, raise funds. But it is useful to remember the role of marketing communications in the overall activities of a not-for-profit. You can consider this from the point of view of the National Museum of Scotland. You need to consider how the various characteristics that not-for-profits have in common are being considered when marketing communications are taking place. Because if we have different audiences who have different needs, they're going to require different types of messaging in order to become engaged and to respond to the call to action that you are providing them with. The AIDA model is an acronym that reminds us of what we are trying to do when we are creating a message within a marketing context. The message needs to do multiple things in order to be successful. The message itself needs to grab the attention of your intended audience so that you can deliver the message. It needs to hold their interest long enough for them to be aroused, and that creates a form of desire, and that desire is then looking to obtain a form of action. I mentioned previously a call to action. So whatever that action might be, you are looking for an outcome from the message, and you need to ensure that these 4 stages are contained within each message in order for it to be successful. Let's talk about the marketing communications mix. This is the foundational definition of the communications mix, the foundational elements: direct marketing, sales promotion, advertising, personal selling, and public relations, better known as PR. So if you think about an organisation like the National Museum of Scotland, how do they use the marketing communications mix to communicate with their audiences, and what are the pros and cons of each method? If you think about something such as personal selling, that goes on in the not-for-profit sector in a very common way, because most people will have had the experience of being approached by a professional fundraiser on the street and asking you to sign up to support a charity. If we take direct marketing first, that involves direct communication with specifically targeted companies or individuals using communication media such as mail, email, or phones. So all that email that goes into your spam folder or if you've ever experienced a cold call trying to sell you double glazing or support for an accident you've had in a traffic accident, that's direct marketing, approaching you directly. Sales promotion is represented by short-term incentives to encourage the purchase of a sale of a particular product. So it will be something out of the ordinary, short-term, looking to push a particular product. These might be discounts in a supermarket or special offers such as buy two, get one free, or 3 for 2, the same idea. These are sales promotions. Advertising communication is something we're all too familiar with. Any form of non-personal presentation and promotion by an organization. So something that's essentially broadcasted. However, in the digital age, the targeting and promotion formats of advertising have become more specific because we're able to use user data in order to target specific advertising to them, which is why we get pop-ups or advertising on banners on websites that seem to somehow relate to the things we know we're already interested in. Personal selling, that's a personal presentation made by representatives of an organization, and we just used the example of the street vendors of charities, known as chuggers. And then PR, that's building a corporate image through managing positive, negative, rumours, stories, events, and creating engaging opportunities with the press and the media in a proactive manner. And it's something that has continually increased in necessity and popularity in the internet age. We've talked about communications. Now, what about brands? What is a brand? We are all familiar with the basic idea. Brands are used to augment products or services with values and associations that are recognized by and are meaningful to their customers. So both managers and customers are involved in the branding process because we hold in our own minds what a brand means to us, and therefore we contribute to the construction of the meaning of brands. They can be understood as a name, term, sign, symbol, or design, or a combination of those things intended to identify the goods or services of one seller or a group of sellers and to differentiate them from those of competitors. The whole concept of branding is to do with identity, and when an organization is trying to attract funding towards a powerful cause, packaging that around a brand can help to establish its identity and communicate meaning to its relevant stakeholders. So we call this brand positioning, and the anatomy of brand positioning is made up of these 6 different parts. There's brand domain, brand heritage, brand values, brand assets, brand personality, and brand reflection. So what do these different things mean? Well, brand domain is your target market. Where is your brand being consumed? Where is your brand competing in the marketplace? That's the domain of your brand, the field in which it plays. Brand heritage is the background to the brand and its culture. And that background might not only be to the branding itself and the marketing activities around it, but the organization as a whole. How has it achieved success and indeed failure in its past? And how do you communicate that and capture that through the way in which you brand the organization? Brand values are the core values and characteristics of the brand. How does it make us feel? Brand assets are really what makes a brand distinctive. These are the symbols, features, images, and relationships which we understand to relate to the brand. And if you think of your favorite sports or fashion brands, you can think of a whole host of different aspects that inform what we consider to be the brand assets. If you think of the clothing brand Adidas, it has multiple different symbols and different features that are associated with it as a brand, 3 stripes and things like this. And then you have relationships which are associated with the brand if it does brand collaborations with other brands, or indeed the people who are seen wearing the brand. And Adidas as a sports brand has transcended sport into popular culture and music, and so the relationships that the brand has are as strong with 1980s hip-hop band Run DMC as they are with footballers and tennis players. The personality of the brand is the character of the brand in terms of other entities. So those relationships and associations that create brand assets also translate into associations with celebrity endorsement, so there's a symbiotic relationship between the way in which we associate people to the brands, and the personalities of those people imbue the brand with its own personality. And that's why brands are keen to bring celebrity endorsement, but also try to manage that image so that if there is an issue with the celebrity, they may need to distance themselves from the individual. And also, if things change in the circumstances of a celebrity, their personality may no longer be aligned with the personality and assets and values of the brand. An obvious example, again, from sportswear would be Tiger Woods and Nike. And finally, we have brand reflection, how the brand relates to self-identity, how the customer perceives themselves as a result of being associated with buying, using the brand. So there's a sense of the borrowed identity that consumers of the brand have, and again, that creates a symbiotic relationship. The reason marketers invest so much time and money in brands is because they are helpful. They reduce the time we spend in decision making by helping us identify preferred products and services and help them stand out. They reduce levels of perceived risk because familiarity encourages us to perceive risk as lower. It helps us gauge quality. If we associate a certain brand with a history of consistent quality, then that allows us to make a judgment on future products. It also creates a sense of reassurance, both psychological reassurance and psychological reward. Things like services that are bought on an occasional basis, we maybe don't have a level of familiarity with it, but the branding helps mitigate for any kind of psychological cognitive dissonance, as it's called, that we may hold in relation to a purchase. It also passes on information. It tells us things like, where is the company from? How long has it been running for? What exactly does it do? All these things can be communicated by a brand. So we like brands for these reasons, and a strong brand can help a charity in all these ways. It will help us as members of the public quickly identify the organisation, whether it's a charity or another not-for-profit organisation, and it will reassure us as we engage with it, as we donate money with it. It will reassure us that when we spend that money, it's going to go towards a good cause. So it reduces that perceived risk of the money being spent in an unethical or ill-conceived way. So branding helps not-for-profits differentiate and communicate. It creates associations with attributes or feelings or emotions which help drive the cause of a not-for-profit organization, which helps us connect to our emotions in order to follow a call to action that may have been offered to us through marketing communications. And that creates lasting impressions, so it may also facilitate the future engagement with the organization, future donations, future contributions. So successful brands create strong, positive and lasting impressions through communications and the associated psychological feelings and emotions embed a sense of commitment among consumers to the organization. Particularly with charities and charitable branding, branding allows the charity to cut through the clutter and the noise, and we remember that there are hundreds of thousands of charities in operation in the United Kingdom alone. It helps the charity differentiate from other similar causes by focusing donor parties on the functional attributes of the organisation. It can help secure things like press and TV coverage through the logo or other things associated with the brand. In the UK we have the Red Nose Day, which is a long established fundraising day associated with people putting fake red noses on their faces. It also gives donors a sense of ownership and transaction. There are emotional benefits to the familiarity of the brand and emotional benefits to being able to display your association with the brand by wearing, for example, a badge or a ribbon or a wristband. And that creates a sense of transactional commercialism, which in the developed Western world we expect when we hand over money, we expect to get something back from it, and brands are able to deliver that to us as donors. Finally, let's look at the impact of branding at different strategic stages of not-for-profit marketing. At the cause orientation stage, the branding priority is the core message and generating a sense of urgency. Things like disaster appeals. The brand helps a charity establish itself and create a sense of authenticity and trustworthiness. At the funding orientation stage, this is all about helping with differentiation and identity creation. So we are able to treat various audiences in different ways. We've got clients, trustees, volunteers, and branding can help unite all those different stakeholders around the cause of the organisation. The emphasis will be on the problem and not on the solution at this stage, and the brand will help to differentiate the organisation as having a unique and vital role. Finally, at the need orientation stage, this is about badging various activities. When we get to the need orientation stage and we're being guided by a long-term strategic vision, there's usually a long-term commitment by the organisation, and the emphasis is on developing solutions. This means that the activities can become wide-ranging and different, and a brand helps to position the charity in a united fashion across a variety of projects by creating an outward visual identity. There are disadvantages though, and we have to be aware of how investing in branding and marketing communications can create unintended consequences about the images of the organisation. Emotive imagery is often used to communicate the urgency and the need of a particular cause, but sometimes that can conflict with the organisation's aim. So if a charity is trying to support victims, whether it's of domestic violence, for example, the imagery that they use in their branding and communications may portray the people that they're supporting as victims, as helpless, as vulnerable, and that might not be what they're trying to do in creating a solution through their activities. There are costs involved in establishing a successful brand and delivering successful marketing communications. So every penny spent on that is a penny taken away from the actual cause of the organisation, and that may be seen as negative. Branding also belongs to a suite of professional marketing activities, and when an organisation becomes professionalised, that can actually turn some donors off because they feel that they are feeding a machine that is large and has lots of hierarchy and bureaucracy and layers, as opposed to feeding the direct recipients of the activities of the organisation, and therefore they're less inclined to offer their money. Also, a brand can perish. We used to have a spastic society in the United Kingdom, which is now a completely outmoded term, and therefore the brand becomes dated within its context, and investment needs to be made to refresh and update the brand. In summary, the marketing communications mix can be applied to charitable organisations, and we've refreshed on the elements of that and thought about how those things should be considered within not-for-profit context. And there are benefits to branding, such as managing risk and helping customers to decide to donate, as well as the disadvantages, such as not being seen to spend too much on these marketing activities and the staff associated with them, and focusing more on the cause. That concludes part 4 of not-for-profit marketing. So you have now completed all the content for this topic. Please refer to the course reading for further learning materials.